we were filming this colony of rockhopper penguins, and then all of a sudden we see the water boiling offshore. Wow, what's that?
Explorer Enrique Sala found himself on the southern tip of Argentina, on a remote island called Isla de los Estados. It's been off limits to tourism since 1923, when it was set aside as a reserve for fur seals. It's home to a forest of twisting southern beech trees and two of the largest known rockhopper penguin colonies in Argentina.
And we see these dozens of penguins coming onto the shore. And they were not just swimming, they were jumping and zigzagging, and wow. And this is a behavior that we've seen in other places where animals are trying to escape from killer whales, from orcas. Wow, is there an orca here, right? And no orcas to be seen. And then in front of me, this big brown head comes out of the water, grabs a penguin, and takes it down. That was a bull sea lion, huge sea lion with a huge head. He was there underwater waiting. And when the penguins swam over him, he just snatched one and disappeared.
I'm Amy Briggs, executive editor of National Geographic History magazine, and you're listening to Overheard, a show where we eavesdrop on the wild conversations we have at Nat Geo and follow them to the edges of our big, weird, beautiful world. This week, I sit down with Enrique Sala, founder of National Geographic's Pristine Seas, a project that combines exploration, research, and media to inspire countries to protect the last wild places in the ocean. We'll hear about some of his coolest expeditions and find out what we need to do to keep the ocean pristine. Adventure is never far away with a free 1-month trial to Nat Geo Digital. For starters, there's full access to our online stories with new stories published every day, plus every Nat Geo issue ever published in our digital archives. There's a whole lot more for subscribers, and you can check it all out for free at natgeo.com/exploremore.
I am Enrique Sala, National Geographic Explorer in Residence, and for a living, I work to create big protected areas in the ocean, national parks in the sea.
Enrique is the founder and leader of National Geographic's Pristine Seas project, which leads worldwide expeditions to explore the ocean and supports the creation of marine protected areas, or MPAs for short. Since 2008, Pristine Seas has helped to establish 26 marine preserves with a combined area of 6.5 million square kilometers of ocean, more than twice the size of India.
So when did you learn how to dive, and what inspired your interest in the ocean?
I grew up on the Mediterranean coast of Spain and the Costa Brava in Catalonia, and I was very lucky because the summers I spent on the shore, on the beach with my mom and my brother. My father worked at a restaurant during the summer, so I spent my days on the beach basically. But then on Sunday evening, the entire family was glued to the TV set, watching the undersea world of Jacques Cousteau. That was my inspiration. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a diver in Cousteau's boat in the famous Calypso. This is when my passion for the ocean started.
Did you start wearing a red beanie as a teenager, or?
No, but I had a Speedo, of course.
So we did this podcast episode for Shark Fest about people's fear of sharks. And I just talked to you a little bit before about one of your early presentations that I saw at Nat Geo where the sharks were everywhere. But you seem pretty relaxed swimming with them. Were you always so relaxed around the top predators?
When I was a kid and watched the film Jaws, I was terrified of sharks. And then I started diving with sharks. And then we started going to pristine places, which are full of sharks. And the more I dove with sharks, the less worried I was. More people kill themselves every year taking selfies than people being killed by sharks. So I'm more worried about the iPhone than about sharks.
I'm an amateur diver myself. And I remember the first time I was in the water with one and had the same sort of feeling and just this respect for how big and powerful and graceful, but then they seemed so completely uninterested in people.
Totally.
Yeah, they were on the reef, they were swimming. They would occasionally kind of like side eye you, but then keep going. The things that scared me were barracuda. They're creepy. I don't know if it's just the big teeth, but they tend to swim in my blind spot, so I can't really see them. And then I turn around and they're there, and So anyway, so you mentioned that you had started diving around the time you were finishing up your PhD. So you're doing pristine seas now. How did you decide to make the transition from academia and launch pristine seas?
Yeah, well, in my previous life, I was a professor of marine ecology at Scripps Institution of Oceanography in La Jolla, in California. And my job was to teach and conduct research. And my research was on the impacts of humans in the ocean, the impacts of fishing and global warming mostly. And every new paper had more data and more precision. And we were more confident that, yes, we are killing marine life everywhere. And one day I realized that all I was doing was writing the obituary of the ocean, actually rewriting it with more and more precision. And I thought, well, I don't want to look back 20 years from now and see that all I have done is refine the obituary of the ocean. I felt like the doctor who's telling you how you're going to die with excruciating detail, but not offering a cure.
Mm-hmm.
You may wanna change doctors, right? So this is what I did. I left academia to work on the cure, to work on conservation of ocean life full time.
So what would you say is the most immediate threat to the ocean? Is it climate change? Is it overfishing? Is it microplastics? Like, what's the biggest one or most immediate?
All of them, actually. Historically, the biggest threat has been overfishing. We've taken fish out of the water faster than they can reproduce, and overfishing continues. But now we have ocean warming and acidification, which is killing coral reefs and other marine life around the world. And the plastic pollution is very conspicuous, but also we have pollution that we cannot see, like heavy metals, for example. So it's the three of them: pollution, global warming, and overfishing, which is killing the ocean faster and faster than ever.
I mean, I know we're talking about those as like very, very big things that make impacts, but I know I think it was Pitcairn Island, this remote island you went to that only has about 50 people living on it, and you saw like degraded ocean environments there. I mean, if it only takes 50 people to degrade an area, I mean, how can we protect the ocean?
Well, we can protect the ocean by not killing marine life everywhere, right? Something I don't want this. I wouldn't like this discussion to be doom and gloom. So people, you go and listen to fun music. There are good news. The good news is that if we protect areas of the ocean, if we set aside areas without fishing, without mining, without drilling, without destruction of the coast, these areas come back spectacularly. I've seen it with my own eyes all around the world. The ocean has an extraordinary ability to bounce back. And we know that when you have more fish in these protected areas, the fish are also larger because we don't kill them. They take a longer time to die. They reach their maximum sizes. And we know that the biggest females are the ones that produce most eggs in the fish populations that are going to help replenish the areas around these protected areas, these marine reserves. So if we set aside at least 30% of the ocean in no-take areas, this 30% will help regenerate, will help replenish the other 70%, so we'll have food for everybody into the future.
So how do you identify candidates to become an MPA? Does it need to start out pristine and you preserve it? Or is it, like you were saying, if you create these things, places can bounce back? Walk me through the process.
So we have places that are in the ocean. We have this spectrum that goes from totally pristine, remote and inhabited islands that are not fished, all the way to completely degraded areas that are like underwater barrens and everything in between. So we need to protect those places that are left, that are still pristine. We need to save them. But also, we need to protect as many